This is the DJI Mic 2, and today I will be reviewing this mic for wedding filmmakers. So if you are a wedding filmmaker, or you film corporate or commercial videos or anything like that, this video is for you. And to spoil the conclusion of this review, because I want to save you time, I think that this is a great mic for content creators and YouTubers, but for wedding filmmakers, it's lacking in a few key areas, and something like the Rode Wireless Pro or Tascam DR10L Pro would probably serve you better. You can download my wedding filmmaker gear guide, which will show you all of the gear that I recommend you buy. It's completely free and linked down in the video description. Also, for the sake of ethics, I want you to know that this video is not paid or sponsored by DJI, but they did send me this microphone so I could make this review. Anyways, bit of context for you. I have personally never owned the DJI Mic 1, but I have had a bit of experience with it, and considering that there has been a lot of competition in this tiny wireless microphone system space with these mics from DJI, the Rode Wireless Pro mic, and the Lark Max from Hollyland, I'm really interested in seeing how these mics stack up. Spoiler alert, by the way, I am planning on making a more in-depth comparison between the DJI mic and the Rode Wireless Pro because many people have been asking me about that, specifically for wedding filmmaking, so please subscribe if you want to see that video. Now, getting right into the review, the first thing you're going to notice about the DJI Mic 2 is that this case is fantastic. It's made of metal, it can charge the microphone transmitters and receivers twice from its internal battery. You have the charge lights on the front and charge port on the back. But if I could liken the opening and closing mechanism of this charging case, the closest comparison that I have would be the charging case for AirPods, which if you have one of those cases, you know what I'm talking about. It's a very satisfying open and close feeling for that case, and it feels like DJI was able to replicate that feeling, but with this larger, more metal body. This case is basically like a fidget toy for me, and closing it is the most satisfying clicking sound that I've heard in quite a while. Just listen, here we go, put it up right here. Oh, it's so good. I could do that like 50 times right now. Love it. Anyways, next, once you get past opening and closing the case 10 times to hear the click, one more time. You can tell me in the comments if you do that too. Like I said, once you open it though, you're going to get to the actual recorders and receiver, which are definitely a unique look. Specifically, the dual transmitters have this really cool transparent plastic on the front of them that lets you see the circuit board inside. And this brings me back to the early 2000s when everything was translucent, like the early iMacs, or even better, the translucent Nintendo 64. Do you remember how cool that thing looked? Yes, it was awesome. That said, once you get past the coolness aspect of the front of this transmitter, you start to realize, hey, wait a second, this plastic covering it is kind of shiny. And if you're using this microphone in a professional setting where you're trying to hide it, which for 99% of pro filmmakers out there, I know that you do not want the mic to be visible. In that case, having this transmitter be shiny makes it a bit more difficult to hide, because if you do not have it in a pocket or under a shirt using the lav mic, it's going to stand out a little bit more, and that's quite a bummer. Thankfully, you have clips on these transmitters on the back, as well as magnetic attachments that will help you hide these transmitters, and these magnets are like super strong. It's awesome. Just keep in mind that you're definitely going to want to keep these transmitters hidden, otherwise this mic is going to stand out. In short, if you are someone creating a video for YouTube and you want to show off the microphone, then I think that the design is cool. But if you're using this mic in a more professional sense, it's not quite as cool. Back to something that I love about this mic now, the touch screen on the receiver is a total win in my opinion. This screen enables the receiver to give you a ton of useful information, and more importantly, it enables you to change settings without needing to mess around with an app or trying to press tiny buttons. They even added a ring that looks like something from an Apple Watch but bigger, and it makes changing settings really easy. Being able to change the settings on the receiver is a big win, and I'm so happy with how DJI has built this receiver. Back to cons now. Sorry, we're going back and forth here between pros and cons. We need to talk about the biggest con of these transmitters in my opinion. And I've already seen a ton of people talking about this online, so you probably know where I'm going. But don't worry, we have another con that we need to talk about in a little bit that I've seen basically no one talking about, so that's going to be interesting. Anyways, the issue is that while both these transmitters have dedicated microphone jacks so you can plug in an external lav mic, which is great, unfortunately, neither of these transmitters have locking microphone connectors that screw in the lav mic to the transmitter. So there's a definite chance that the microphone could get pulled out. DJI has included the ability for you to thread the mic cord around underneath the back clip here and make it more secure, but this isn't a replacement, in my opinion, for a locking mic jack that is threaded. This is a big bummer, considering that most other microphones and recorders that I can think of these days have locking mic jacks. This has almost become standard, and I know many filmmakers appreciate it. The main thing that you're going to need to keep in mind when using these microphones is that if you are filming something where you can keep a close eye on your talent and monitor the audio that's being recorded while you are filming to make sure that it isn't pulled out, in that case, you're probably going to be all right without a locking lav mic jack. But if you are filming something like a wedding, which, like I said at the start, I'm reviewing this recorder for wedding filmmakers, if you are not able to keep a close eye on the person wearing the lav mic, and they are, say, a groom or officiant, and they have it on their jacket, and maybe they take off their jacket to go to the bathroom before the ceremony, or maybe they're stretching or something, people do weird things. In that case, the lav could be pulled out, and that would basically result in you not recording good audio, which would suck. To be clear, the receiver will tell you if there's a lav mic plugged in or if it's using the built-in microphone on the transmitter with a little icon. But like I said, if you're filming a wedding and you aren't keeping a close eye on things, you might not notice. And even if you did notice, it's not like you're going to yell, "Stop the wedding!" and then you're going to go down from the balcony and run up there to the front while everybody's looking at you and you're going to plug the mic back in. I mean, you could do that, but the people would hate you. The couple would hate you. All the guests would. It'd just be annoying. So you're not going to do it. This may be a deal breaker for you with the DJI Mic 2 right here. If you want a microphone with a locking mic jack, you have a lot of options for other companies, so it's hard for me to recommend this. All that said, I do remember back in the day, a lot of my wedding filmmaker friends were recording audio using a Zoom H1, which was pretty darn bulky. It was like 4 of these DJI Mic 2s tall put together, and it didn't have a locking mic jack either. You can comment if that was you, okay? Remember, you gotta like stuff into the groom's jacket somehow, and it's massive. I had a friend who would gaff tape his microphone plug into the recorder to make sure it wouldn't come out. He was brave, because I definitely knew other filmmakers that lost audio because their mics were pulled out of the H1. But I'm just saying, if you want to take the chance, you can feel free to with the DJI Mic 2. Now, let's turn our attention to the audio features of these recorders, because this is where things start to get really interesting. I'm so glad to tell you that DJI has now included 32-bit float recording technology in the DJI Mic 2, meaning that you will not need to worry about your audio being too loud or too quiet. You'll be able to adjust the volume level in post and recover it if it peaks, which is fantastic. That said, because I've had people ask, this 32-bit float audio is only going to be saved to the microphone's internal 8 GB of memory, which is about 11 hours of recording time. DJI says this mic will record 14 hours on their site, but that is only for 24-bit audio, and if you want 32-bit float audio, it's only 11. This means that if you plug the receiver into your camera and record audio from the microphones that way, the audio that is recorded to your camera is not going to be 32-bit float, because at the time of making this video, I do not know of any cameras that support internal 32-bit float recording. I would love to see it though. Instead, your audio recorded to your camera is going to be lower quality, and if you want to access this 32-bit float audio, you will need to connect your transmitters to your computer and copy the audio files from them. Then you will need to sync up the audio recorded to your camera with the audio saved to the transmitter. So it is a bit of extra work, but worth it for the extra audio quality that you get from 32-bit float audio recording, in my opinion. Also, to complicate things a bit further, when recording in 32-bit float, these transmitters will record audio in 23-minute segments. So every 23 minutes, it will cut and create a new file on the transmitter. This isn't a big deal, and you won't lose any audio between when it's going from one file to the other, but it does mean you're going to end up with a lot of extra audio files if you're recording for a long time, not just one audio file. Now, do you want to talk more about audio quality? Let's talk about audio quality. First, I want you to know that all of the audio recorded in this video has been recorded with the DJI Mic 2. I'm wearing one, and the DJI Lav Mic. Specifically, I'm using the 32-bit float audio because it sounds better than the audio that is transmitted wirelessly. So if you like how the audio has sounded in this video, then you'll probably like the audio from the DJI Mic 2. That said, I'm sure you just heard me say that the audio that is transmitted wirelessly sounds a bit worse. So now I've just switched to the audio that was recorded to the camera, and as you can hear, it does sound slightly different, and to my ears, it's just a bit worse. Of course, we have more audio quality to test. Specifically, we need to talk about how these microphones sound without the lav mic included. So here's an example of the DJI Mic 2 directly from the transmitter without a lav mic recorded at 32-bit float internally. This is the DJI Mic 2 recording directly into the audio capsule without a lav mic. And here's another example with the DJI Mic 2 with the audio transmitted, not recorded internally. This is a test of the DJI Mic 2 with the audio recorded directly to the camera from the transmitter. So as you can hear, in my opinion, the DJI Mic 2 with the lav mic recorded directly into the transmitter does sound best, and that's how I'd recommend using it if you are using the DJI Mic 2. We have more features to talk about now, and some of these are really important and may significantly affect whether you want to purchase this microphone or not, so strap in. Let's start with a few words that start with B. I feel like I'm teaching my children. Yes. The first B stands for battery life. If you look at DJI's website, they proudly proclaim that the DJI Mic 2 has a battery life of 18 hours, which sounds fantastic, but that is a little misleading. That is the battery life you will have if you stop and plug the transmitters and receiver into the charging case to recharge them once the batteries die. Instead, you have to read the slightly smaller text, which will tell you that each transmitter has a battery life of 6 hours, which is significantly less. And then, here's the kicker, that 6 hours is only if you have turned off internal recording to the transmitters and are only using the audio that they are wirelessly sending to your camera. When you turn on the 32-bit float internal recording, which I definitely recommend that you enable, the battery life is going to be lower and it's going to be closer to about 5 hours in my tests. This feels very similar to my review of the Rode Wireless Pro, which had about a 6.5-hour battery life, so I'll repeat what I said in that review. If you're a filmmaker that records shorter videos, like say you only put the recorder on the person you're filming for an interview, then you'll probably be okay with this 5-ish hours battery life, unless you're recording the world's longest interview. On the other hand, if you're a filmmaker that likes to put a mic on someone the entire day, where if you, for example, show up to a wedding, then put a mic on the couple, and then record audio of them hanging out with their friends and family, plus their first look, and the ceremony and reception, in that case, 5 hours is not going to cut it. That said, one area where the DJI Mic 2 is different from the Rode Wireless Pro is that the DJI Mic 2 is capable of receiving external power and still recording. Meaning that if you want to rig up one of these recorders as well as the receiver with a USB-C battery pack, you could feasibly record with them for a much longer period of time. Keep in mind, though, that if you want to record that high-quality 32-bit float internally, you're still going to be limited to the maximum recording time of 11 hours before the storage is filled up. So while this is a nice workaround, it's not going to enable you to record all day like you could with a recorder like the Tascam DR10L Pro. Moving on, the next B that we need to talk about stands for Bluetooth, and Bluetooth is a new feature of the DJI Mic 2 that was not present on the original DJI Mic. With Bluetooth, you can now directly connect the DJI Mic 2 to some of DJI's other cameras like the Osmo Pocket 3 and Osmo Action 4, and it can also connect to your smartphone as a wireless microphone, which is great. But how is the range? Not only of Bluetooth, but of the mic in general. Well, Bluetooth is Bluetooth, so I wouldn't expect magic there. Don't leave the room that your mic is in and expect Bluetooth to work far. But as far as the range of these transmitters and receivers go, if there's no obstructions, DJI says the range is about 250 meters. But let's be honest, if you're filming a wedding in a church or another venue, there's going to be obstructions. So I would expect that you'll still be all right as far as range goes at a wedding, but just keep in mind that if the signal does start to have some interference, you can always use the built-in audio recorded to the transmitters, which I recommend using anyways because it's 32-bit float audio and it sounds the best. Next, let's talk about another feature. And while this feature may be considered by some to be a pro, in my opinion, it's a bit more of a con. This is the automatic noise cancellation feature, and it is enabled by pressing the power button on the transmitter while it's recording. Simply press it once, and if you're filming in a noisy environment, the transmitter will do its best to remove some of that noise and make the audio sound cleaner. This noise cancellation works with both the transmitter mic and if there's a lav mic connected, and that sounds great, right? Well, here's the issue, and this comes back to my central premise of the DJI Mic being a great microphone system if you are able to keep a close eye on your talent while you're recording, but it not being so good if you cannot monitor the audio the entire time, like at a wedding. See, like I said, to enable or disable the automatic noise cancellation on this transmitter, all you have to do is quickly press the power button. And there is unfortunately at the time of this recording, no way to disable the power button, so it doesn't turn off this feature and also doesn't stop you from turning off the power if you hold it down for too long. So this means that if you put the transmitter on someone, let's say at a wedding, and then they accidentally press the power button, either by sitting down and sitting on it or messing with it, which you would be surprised by how many people mess with the microphone at times. They're like, oh, I just wanted to adjust something. I wanted to mute it while I was talking. People don't know what they're doing. They don't know how to start and stop things, and they're going to mess it up most likely. So then suddenly what you run into is either they've turned off the microphone completely or they have enabled the noise cancellation, and both of those things could ruin your audio. This is a huge bummer, and I would love to see DJI release a firmware update that would let you lock all of these buttons remotely while the recorder is recording, so that way you could disable the noise cancellation feature and prevent people from enabling it. You can disable the power and the record button. Just don't let people do anything. There is a setting on the receiver you can enable that will lock the record button on the transmitter and prevent the person wearing it from accidentally stopping the recording, but there isn't one to disable the power button. Feels like a bit of a miss there. Moving on, let's talk about the T word. What's the T word? No, it's not tacos. I love tacos though. The T word is timecode. As we see more and more audio recorders released, many of the manufacturers have been adding timecode to help you synchronize your audio in post. Unfortunately though, if you want timecode, you're going to need to wait for the DJI Mic 3, which will hopefully include it, because the DJI Mic 2 doesn't have timecode support. Yes, it's sad, but if you want to synchronize your audio, you are unfortunately going to need to use your editing software's built-in tools to do it without the help of timecode. Incidentally, if you want to learn how to use timecode and you are using a Tascam or Zoom audio recorder, I have an entire video explaining how to easily use timecode with those recorders, and I will link to it up in the corner and down in the video description. So with that, for $350, should you buy the DJI Mic 2, especially if you're a wedding filmmaker or you film corporate or commercial videos, etc.? Well, I think that this mic is great for anyone that is recording themselves or putting it on a client that they can closely monitor. Unfortunately though, without a locking microphone jack and the chance for automatic noise cancellation to be turned on by pressing the power button, or the transmitter just to be turned off by easily pressing the power button, it's just a little too dangerous to have this microphone on a client that you cannot keep an eye on, like someone walking around at a wedding. For this reason, I think that the DJI Mic 2 is a great microphone choice for YouTubers and content creators, but if you're looking for a microphone for filming weddings, I would sooner recommend something like the Rode Wireless Pro or the Tascam DR10L. Speaking of recommendations, have you downloaded my Wedding Filmmaker Gear Guide yet? This is a free guide that I've put together that will show you literally every piece of gear that I recommend for wedding filmmaking, including audio gear. Plus, there are links to all of it to save you time so you don't have to search for everything. It's all right there for you. You can download this guide completely for free at the link down below. Thanks so much for watching and have a great day.